What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Black Ops 4 video. Now I figured with Christmas right around the corner, this would be the perfect video that will help out somebody out there. I don't care who you are, whether you're new to Call of Duty or you're a Call of Duty veteran trying to hop back into the game. You know, there's always people out there who will benefit from this information. So I'm going to be providing 5 crucial tips that you can apply to your game right now that will help you stay alive a lot longer in the game. A lot of these tips that I'm going to share with you guys are a little bit basic and simple, but you know, sometimes you have to remember that when you go back to basics and you go back to the fundamentals, you realize how effective they can be in the long run and how positive the results can be. For example, in my video on how to win gunfights, I simply said pre-aim around every corner. There was a lot of people who agreed that, hey, this is something that I failed to do in my gameplay, but after watching the video and pre-aiming around corners, I've won a lot more gunfights that way. And that is just a prime example of how something so simple can change your game. And you know, and it just goes to show that there are different ways in the game for you to have a better experience. All you got to do is just utilize the tools that the game gives you in the most optimal way. All of these tips that I'm about to share with you, they all intertwine with each other at the end of the day. So I'm going to need you guys to pay attention closely because I want to go in depth with it. So there's going to be some timestamps in the description to save you some time if you're curious about what topics I will be going over, if you want to skip over to that. So the first tip is probably one of the most important tips in this video, and that is to add a suppressor. I know it's like super simple, right? But adding a suppressor, it really does make a big difference. Like I said, whether you're going against clans or just people who are good in general, if your class setup allows you to put on a suppressor, guaranteed you will die less in that match. Now I know there's going to be some people who are saying, well, you know, I don't like putting on a suppressor because it makes the time to kill a lot longer. Well, Exclusive Ace did a video and he talked about how it really only affects about 10% of the performance of the weapon, and it's not even something that's really that noticeable. I can attest to that as well because I've used suppressors on tactical rifles, submachine guns, and assault rifles in the game, and I have not noticed any performance issues whatsoever. So adding a suppressor to your class setup is definitely going to change your game, and you'll see the difference night and day. The next tip I want to share with you guys is my class setup. So I have 3 class setups here, but the main one I want to talk about is the MX9 setup. So just keep in mind the perks and the gear and the secondary are all the same, with the exception of the KN, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now I believe this setup right here is the best stealth class setup if I'm trying to be stealthy and stay alive a lot longer. All I really feel like this class setup needs is just the suppressor and the hybrid mags. With this I accomplish a lot because the gun is still effective in general, and at the same time I can equip the suppressor and I got the hybrid mags, which gives you a lot more ammo and the ability to reload your weapon a lot faster. And I believe that is super key, especially when you're trying to stay alive, because you want to be able to have bullets on deck and be able to return to gunfights as soon as possible. All right, so next we got the salvo. This one is mainly for taking out those UAVs. As soon as the enemy calls in a UAV, I like to go to a safe spot on the map, find the UAV, take it down, because obviously when you take it down, they're not going to be able to see you on the mini map in the first place. Now you might be thinking, why aren't I using Ghost? Well, honestly, Ghost is pretty iffy in this game. It's not the same as it used to be in previous Call of Duties, and it's not as consistent, and I feel like it's not as reliable. But I feel like having this, it's really the best bang for your buck because you're only paying 1 point for it in the class system, and all you got to do is find the UAV, shoot it down, and that's it. Not only you, but your teammates will also be benefiting from it. That's mainly why I choose having the salvo over the Ghost perk any day. All right, so the next one we're going to be using is the acoustic sensor. This one is a huge component to the class setup as well. Whatever direction it may be, you're going to know where the enemy is coming from because of the alerts that show up on your minimap. And even if they have a counter UAV, you're still able to see where they're coming from because your minimap is going to light up red and it's going to show a cone, and you're going to know which direction to turn and pre-aim and to be ready for that gunfight. So that will definitely help you stay alive a lot longer, and it's also especially helpful when you're deep in the enemy spawn and there's just so many enemies around you. You'll know where to look first when you feel overwhelmed, and I feel like this is a really big component to staying alive a lot longer. All right, so now we're going to talk about the tac mask. This one is a crutch perk in my opinion. Almost all of my classes I never run without it, honestly. It's because the tac mask, it counters 2 things that I find personally annoying that I die to most frequently in the game, and that is the 9-bang and the EMP from the new Specialist Zero. When people use the 9-bang, it's basically a guaranteed death for you, but when you have tac mask, it works wonders. It gives you a chance to leave the situation and survive, and that's why I really like tac mask. Tac mask definitely reduces the chances of that happening, and many more other things too as well. Increased resistance to 9-bang, concussion, Concussion, Razor Wire, React Core Seeker, Tempest Fire, and Counter UAV. You know, all of these things in the game that we find annoying are what is killing us easier and faster. So this perk really does go a long way, and I find a lot of value in it. All right, so moving on, we're moving on to Gung Ho and Cold Blooded. Gung Ho is pretty self-explanatory. It helps you win those gunfights. It allows you to shoot your weapon while you're sprinting. So I believe that having that advantage over the enemy is very important in winning those gunfights and staying alive. But let's talk about Cold Blooded here. Cold Blooded, I feel like, is very important. Even if it's just for a split second, I feel like it is very crucial to have on if you're trying to stay alive a lot longer, especially when you're trying to take out Scorestreaks or the enemy calls in a K9 unit. I've had some instances where the K9 unit is literally standing right next to me and it doesn't attack me, it goes somewhere else. And for that split second, I use that opportunity to run away and like haul ass and just go somewhere else. And that definitely saved me a death. I find Cold Blooded to be really helpful in staying alive. Then of course we have Dead Silence here to keep your footsteps silent, and using Dead Silence is definitely going to counteract the players who are using acoustic sensor, because they're not going to be able to see you on the minimap. They're not going to be able to hear your footsteps as loud as if you didn't have Dead Silence. So again, the MX9 is my choice if I were to go that route. Now if you want to go the AR route, this is where it's a little different, so you kind of have to pick your poison depending on what your preferences are, what kind of game type you're playing, what kind of players you're playing against. It all really depends. That's why I'm giving you guys options here. Okay, but everything for the most part is all the same. We got Tac Mask, Gung Ho, and Dead Silence. There is no Cold Blooded on here. Like I said, again, pick your poison. I mean, you could just take out one of these. Maybe if you've got really good accuracy, you could take off grip. That way you don't need to use primary gunfighter 1. You could just spend that extra point on activating perk 2, and then you can get rid of the salvo, then put on Cold Blooded. So it really all depends on what your taste is, but I have 3 different stealth class setups for a reason here. It just kind of depends on what kind of people I'm playing against or what kind of map. So this is my stealth tactical setup. It's the same exact setup as my MX9. I mean, you see it right here. We got suppressor and hybrid mags. Thing that I like about the Swordfish is that I feel like it doesn't really need too many attachments for it to be an effective weapon anyway to begin with. I give myself options here, and I think you should do the same as well, so you're not just limited to one class setup. All right, now let's talk about the best specialist to use. This one is going to be an obvious one. It's going to be using Crash. Crash, I've preached it so many times. What I believe to be the best specialist in Black Ops 4 for many reasons. Number one, it gives yourself and your team extra ammo, and when your team does grab ammo from you, you do get points for that as well. And the tac boost, it gives you extra health and extra bonus points that go towards your score streaks. Also, why we're able to use tac mask in our previous class setups that I just showed you instead of using scavenger, because when you have Crash on, you're able to use the assault pack, which eliminates the need to use scavenger, and it allows us to implement more important things within our class setup. All right, so let's move on to the score streaks. If you're really trying to stay alive, you could optimize your score streak setup. Now the way you would do that is put on UAV, counter UAV, and then drone squad. When you put on the UAV, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you know where the enemies are at. They don't know where you're at because you've got the UAV, so that makes things a lot easier for you. You're like one step ahead of the enemy already. Then we got the counter UAV. They don't know where you're at. You know, you scramble the enemy's minimap, and it makes it a lot harder for them to navigate around the map and know where to find enemies, because not only does it help you, it also helps out your team as well. That's why I like counter UAV for staying alive a lot longer. And the last score streak is going to be the drone squad. This one I really like the most. The thing that I like most about the drone squad is that it watches your back as you're running around the map freely. You don't need to find a safe spot to call it in, and you don't need to worry about leaving yourself vulnerable. That's why I really like using the drone squad. It'll kill people that you didn't even see there. It sees everything first before you, and sometimes I find myself competing kills with the drone squad, and that's not even such a bad thing after all. I mean, it gives you a higher chance to stay alive and win those gunfights when you got the drone squad watching your back. So that's why I really think that the drone squad is one of the best score streaks to use, especially if you're trying to stay alive. All right, so the last thing I want to touch up upon that definitely ties into everything in this video, just as everything else, is the play style, and I highly recommend flanking. Flanking is pretty basic. It's pretty simple. It's basically just shooting the enemy from behind. So how you accomplish this is by separating from your team, recognizing which direction they're looking at, following the outskirts of the minimap, going around and attacking the enemy from behind. I know it's easier said than done, but it really is pretty simple, especially when you master how to flank. You'll definitely find yourself in a position to get more kills and even stay alive a lot longer. And then you combine that with the suppressor, the acoustic sensor, everything. Like I said, everything in this video definitely ties in together, and it optimizes your experience in staying alive a lot longer. If you watch my live gameplays, that's pretty much what I do. I flank. That's my playstyle. I'm that kind of player. I'm a tactical player. So that's it for the tips and tricks for today. You know, I hope you guys found these tips helpful. If you did, don't forget to drop a like, show some love, and subscribe if you're new. Turn on the notifications so you never miss a video. All right, you guys, I'm out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'm out. Peace.